everyone, it's Hunter and welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new here, it is so nice to meet you. In today's video, I am sharing with you guys my top 10 reads of 2021. The last video that I uploaded was all 164 books that I read in 2021. So I am very excited to be sharing with you guys my top 10 from that list. I feel very strongly about all 10 of these books and it was nearly impossible for me to narrow it down. There were some that came to mind immediately and I just started writing down the books that came to mind, and then I kind of went through my list just to make sure I didn't miss anything, and I think I finally got the whole thing down. Oh my gosh, it took me forever. Okay, it took me forever. So going through this, just so that you know the formula I'm following for this, I'm giving you the title, the author, and a brief description and kind of how I felt about it. Obviously, these are all 5-star books and I feel very strongly about every single one of them. So just keep that in mind and just know that whenever I'm saying something about it being good, obviously it's good, but I gotta tell you why I think it's good. So that's kind of what's happening here today. So if you guys like book videos, please be sure to subscribe to my channel down below. I don't make just book content, but I have been making a lot more recently and I've been having a lot of fun with it because I love reading and I love books. So with that being said, like I said, be sure to subscribe and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up as well. That really helps my channel. It lets YouTube know that you like this video, so they'll push it to more people, which will help me grow. And now let's go ahead and get started. I'm wearing my glasses today because I feel like it makes me look more academic. Anyway, these are in no particular order. They were just as I thought of them. So the first one is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I would consider this contemporary fiction, and basically it is about this girl who grows up in the swamps of North Carolina, and she has a really hard life. She's basically abandoned, and she is seen as the swamp girl. She's an outcast. And then something happens. There is a murder in town. Someone dies and they frame her, or not frame her, they think she's the one who did it. And so they put her on trial and it is so good. Like, I just think it's so well written. And I know that a lot of people say that, you know, just because a book is loved by a lot of people doesn't mean it's good. But this one is loved by so many people who like different types of books because, like, listen, everybody loves, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Fantasy books, but I don't like fantasy books. So I would probably rate a fantasy book lower on the scale of reading than other people would because I don't like fantasy books. But my mom does not like mystery books at all. She loved this book. I love this book. It's so good. We are so into different kinds of genres and this one was so good for both of us. And I don't know, it just really pulled at my heartstrings. Like, I really felt a lot of feelings for the main character. And I also think that this one has the potential to become a classic to be taught in schools one day because it's that good. Like, it's that good. I love it so much. Next, it's like one of my faves of all time. So next is Sex and Vanity by Kevin Kwan. And listen, I was talking to someone about this book the other day and I think this book is so good because it's just so dang funny. Like, Kevin Kwan is genuinely so funny. If you've ever read the Crazy Rich Asians series by him as well, you'll know that he's just so funny, and he includes annotations at the end of each chapter. So it's including like his own personal commentary, but it's also giving you historical information. And I feel like as an American, we learn a lot about Western civilization. We learn a lot about Europe and kind of what went on with history in Europe, but we don't talk a lot about what happened history-wise in Asia and in the Asian countries with Chinese dynasties and, you know, Singapore and Malaysia and Thailand and so many different countries in Asia, and you don't know anything about them. And I feel like he does a good job of giving the reader that information with it being accurate but also easy to understand. And also by giving us that information, he also is making sure that we understand the context as a reader to what he's talking about. And I think that that's done really, really well. But also, like I said, he's just so dang funny. I can't even remember what the main concept of this book was, but it was funny. And it's like a funny romance. I don't know how to explain it. I need to get my phone so I can read you the description. Like, I kid you not, I'll read anything that man writes. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it is about a woman who finds herself torn between two worlds. WASP establishment, which is white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. I think that's what that stands for. Establishment of her father's family. And George Zhao, a man who she is desperately trying to avoid falling in love with. On her first morning on the jewel-like island of Capri, Lucy Churchill sets her eyes on George Zhao and she instantly can't stand him. She can't stand it when he gallantly offers to trade hotel rooms with her so that she can have a view of the Tyrrhenian Sea. She can't stand that he knows more about Curzio Malaparte than she does. And she really can't stand it when he kisses her in the darkness of the ancient ruins of a Roman villa, and they are caught by her snobbish, disapproving cousin Charlotte. Daughter of an American-born Chinese mother and blue-blooded New York father, Lucy has always sublimated the Asian side of herself in favor of the white side, and she adamantly denies having feelings for George. But several years later, when George unexpectedly appears in East Hampton where Lucy is weekending away with her new fiancé, Lucy finds herself drawn to George again. Soon, Lucy is spinning out of a web of deceit that involves her family, her fiancé, the co-op board of her Fifth Avenue apartment, and ultimately herself as she tries to mightily deny George entry into her world and her heart. Yeah, it's just so funny. It's so funny, but it's a love story. So a funny love story with some like Chinese history in there. I don't know, it's really, really good. The third book on this list is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover, and I feel like so many people have talked about this book, but I don't think it's talked about enough, if I'm being honest. Like, there are some people who feel like it's overhyped, and that's fine, but I genuinely love this book. I read it all in one sitting, and it's just really good. This girl, I think her name is Tate. She moves in with her brother, who is a pilot, so he's only like there half the time anyway. And she meets his best friend who lives across the hall. His name is Miles. And they decide to become friends with benefits, but they can never be anymore because he cannot love anyone. And she doesn't know why. She's slowly falling for this guy, and he won't let her in because he's said, I'm not gonna love you. I can't love you. And it's just really good. I thought the story was really good. I liked how it kind of discusses topics that I feel like a lot of books wouldn't. I don't know how to explain it. If you've read it, you'll know what I'm saying, but I just thought it was really good because I felt like it really dealt with real world topics and not something stupid. Because I feel like a lot of times, like, the conflict that's keeping a couple from getting together is something like, oh, I don't live here, or oh, my heart's with my job, that kind of thing. And while I think those things are important in books, I do think that sometimes they're not the most important thing to talk about, and this one talks about something that's really hard in someone's past and how it can affect your ability to love people later. Thought it was really good. Next is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Pinner, and I think this one made this list because it was the most surprising to me. Like, I was absolutely not expecting to like this book, but I know that a lot of people said they really liked it, so I wanted to check it out. This was one of those things I wasn't sure if it was gonna be like, I'm starting and I'm not gonna finish, but I wanted to give it a chance, also because the cover is beautiful in my opinion. So I think that's probably why I made this list again, because I was very pleasantly surprised by the whole story. Basically, this girl, she goes to London on her anniversary trip alone because her husband cheated on her, and she had this like huge itinerary planned for her trip to London, and then she decides to scrap the whole plan because her husband just scrapped their whole marriage. So she's like, you know what, never mind, we're just gonna ignore this. We're gonna ignore the itinerary that I spent months making, and I'm just gonna fly by the seat of my pants on this trip. She goes to this river, she finds a jar from the Thames, like in the Thames. She finds this jar, and she's doing research on the jar, which is the apothecary that was lost from like 200 years earlier. So it goes back and forth between her trying to figure that out and the actual story of the apothecary. And I just think it's really good. Like, I was fully unexpecting it. It's very like girl power moment. I really like it. Obviously, it's on this list. Next is November 9 by Colleen Hoover, and she has made this list twice. She's only gonna be on here twice, but she's made this list twice. And I don't know why there was a twist at the end that I wasn't expecting, although I should have seen it coming because it's a book. So I should have seen something like this coming, but I didn't. Basically, there's this girl and this guy. They meet on November 9th, which is the anniversary of a terrible day for both of them, but they don't know why it's a terrible day for the other person. Terrible day. They decide they're gonna reinvent what November 9th means to them, and they decide she's 18 when they meet, and she says, I am not going to meet someone and fall in love with them because I can't do that until I'm 23. My mom said I can't do that until I'm 23. So they're like, okay, that's 5 years. We'll meet every single day on November 9th until you're 23, and then we'll figure out where to go from there. They have no contact during the rest of the year. They don't talk to each other. They don't have each other's phone numbers. They block each other on social media. They just agree on a meeting place and a time for where they're gonna meet on November 9th for the next 5 years. And so it takes you through that day, every single day for the next 5 years. And I just thought it was beautiful. Like, there were so many twists and turns, and it was just so beautiful to me. And I feel like the way that I am looking right now, I just saw myself in my viewfinder and realized I look silly, but it's because I felt like it was so beautiful. And I know a lot of people don't like the way that it ended, but I loved the way it ended. It ended exactly how I wanted it to. Number 6 on this list, I felt chest pain because my heart was broken for these characters, and it's not even a real character. Like, it's not even real. It's just a fiction book, Hunter. But I had chest pain for these characters. It's Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm not kidding when I tell you this has skyrocketed to the top of my favorites list. I don't know why it meant so much to me reading this, because I was like, this is gonna be so overhyped, but I'm gonna read it because, you know, I have to. I gotta find out if it's worth the hype. 100% is worth the hype. Like, 100% in my opinion. Everyone should read this book. I think that this one also has the potential to become a classic, but it is historical fiction, which is actually kind of funny because Where the Crawdads Sing is kind of historical fiction as well, just because it talks about history. But whenever I think of historical fiction, I think of like Regency era or maybe like World War II. I don't ever think of it being like the 50s through the 70s, even though technically I guess it is historical fiction. So anyway, it's this family. They are throwing a house party. They throw this house party every single year, and there's two parts of the book. The first part of the book is going back and forth between the origins of this family, so mom and dad meeting and having kids, getting married, that kind of thing, and leading up to the party. So it goes back and forth between those two. So like the history of the family and then leading up to the party, back and forth in part one. And then part two is just the party, but they're learning a lot about different parts of their family. And I don't know, I just like, the mom made me want to cry. Like it made me want to weep for all of eternity. It was so sad, but so beautiful. It just like captured my heart. I just felt like it was unlike anything I'd ever read. It spoke to me in a way that nothing ever has. I don't know, it was just so beautiful. Like I was reading it, like as I was reading it, I was thinking, this is gonna be one of my favorite books. Normally you don't find that out until the end, after you know what happens at the very end. But I read through this one so quickly because it was so good. And even just like with each turn of the page, I was like, this is so flipping good. Wow, beautiful. Probably one of my, I'd say this is in my top 5 of all time. Next is another one that I was fully not expecting to make this list, but as I was going through, I was like, you know what? I really loved it. Twice in a Blue Moon by Christina Lauren. Basically, I actually read this one in December, so it was pretty recent that I read it. Basically, there's this girl and this guy. They're on vacation in London. They have like a whirlwind romance of the 2 weeks that they're there, and then he tells her secret to the world, and then they meet back up later in life on a job, and she's trying to avoid him because he hurt her, and he doesn't really give, I mean, she doesn't really give him a chance to kind of explain what happened in their past. And I just thought it was really sweet, honestly. That's probably why I liked it so much. It was just really sweet. Also, did you guys know that Christina Lauren is actually a pen name for 2 people? Their first names are Christina and Lauren. My mind was blown, and I can't actually think of anything else when I read one of their books now, because I was fully expecting Christina Lauren to be one person, or maybe like Christina Lauren as the like first and middle name if they're using a pen name, but I was fully not expecting it to be a group of 2 people at all. Next is The Silent Patient, and this one is a psychological thriller. I love a good psychological thriller. I know a ton of people really loved this book. And so of course I had to like it, right? This patient is a silent patient. She murders her husband and then she doesn't talk at all. And instead of her being imprisoned, she is institutionalized. And this therapist decides he wants to try to get her to talk. He wants to be the therapist that breaks her out of whatever is happening to her, get her out of this psychotic break. And it just goes through the story of leading up to the death of her husband and his personal life almost. I don't know. It's a little bit confusing for me to explain it to you, but I got to a point where I remember this very vividly. I remember I was like reading in the bathtub because that's where I get my best reading done. I was reading in the bathtub and I remember going at one part in the book. I was so shook. I was so shook. I was like, that's it. It's going in the list for this year. It's going in the list because it was that good. I just like, it was fully unexpected. I feel like I should have known it was coming, but it wasn't predictable to me. You know, sometimes a book is predictable and I thought this was going to be predictable and it wasn't, and I was just like very shook the whole time. Also, sorry if the lighting is changing. The sun is setting right now. So I really love it if the sun was not setting right now, but it is. So it's getting darker in here by the minute. Anyway, almost done. 2 more books on this list. Next is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I personally have read both Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation, but I preferred Beach Read, although I do feel like the title Beach Read is a little bit misleading to me. But maybe that's because to me, the beach is like the ocean and this was like on a lake. But also I know that Great Lakes states consider their beaches to be like actual beaches, and I've seen pictures of them, and so they're like very much actual beaches. Anyway, there's this girl, she's an author. She is in a bit of a book slump. She moves in next door to this guy she actually went to college with. She has no idea that it's him, and he's also in a book slump. They're both having a hard time writing, and so they challenge each other to write the other person's genre. So she writes romance and he writes like contemporary fiction, I think, and so they challenge each other to write the other person's book, and the person who gets their book published first wins. And I just thought it was really cute. I don't know, maybe it was just really cute. Their banter was like top notch and it was just very good. I don't know how else to explain it. I just liked it better than People We Meet on Vacation. Not that People We Meet on Vacation wasn't good, but Beach Read was like, it was it. It was so good for me anyway. So I guess it's enemies to lovers is the trope, because they start as like enemies. She thinks that he didn't like her because she writes romance and he writes like serious novels. So I thought it was really cute. And the very last book on this list is a thriller, and it is False Witness by Karen Slaughter. And this book made me cry. at the very end of the book, it made me cry. Basically, there are these two sisters. One is a drug addict, the other is a lawyer, and something happened, and in their past, they're trying to escape it, all kinds of stuff, and I don't even really know how to explain the way that I felt reading this book. I am not an addict, so I do not know what it feels like to be an addict, but I feel like the research that the author had to do to properly record what it's like to be an addict, like she had to do strenuous research to write it so well. And I love Karen Slaughter books. I love every single book by hers that I've read. I just genuinely enjoy every book that she's written. And I feel like Slaughter being her last name, if it's not a pen name, it's the most perfect last name ever for her. But it's just so good. Like, it's like crime and psychological thriller. There's just like a lot going on and it's so good. Like literally, I don't even know if I can describe to you how I felt after I got finished reading it. I mean, I said I cried, so that should probably tell you something. I was like, a thriller book has me crying? What's up with that? So I feel like that kind of can tell you a little bit about how it is, but I thought it was really good, and the author's note at the end was very heartfelt, made me cry. Also talks about how if you're an addict, please know that someone loves you, and that really hit me right in the feels because I have had personal experience with addicts in my life, and it's a very difficult topic to approach. So I definitely feel like she wrote it really, really well. Her books tend to be pretty graphic in nature, so I would definitely say this is like, it needs a trigger warning. If you are an ex-addict and reading something like that is going to trigger you into a relapse, then please don't read it. But if not, then I highly recommend it to anybody who likes thrillers. Like I said, it is pretty graphic, so readers' discretion is advised on that front. But I really, really, really enjoyed it so much. So those are all of the books that I read in 2021 that were my top favorite books. Like I said, it was pretty hard for me to narrow it down because I did read 164 books, but picking my favorite was, like I said, hard. I don't have one favorite because there were just so many that I really felt them. So yeah, if you guys want to read them, I will link them down below for you guys. They're available on Kindle. I read all of those on Kindle actually. But also if you just want to read the physical copy, I'll link that down below for you guys. And yeah, if you guys have read any of them and really liked them, please let me know. Also, let me know what your favorite books from the year were because I am very interested, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.